You're listening to the CareersBU Podcast, a podcast aimed at Bournemouth University students and graduates. Each episode, we talk to employers, alumni and professionals all about their career journey, what employers are looking for, and help you explore the opportunities that are available to you. Hello and welcome to the CareersBU Podcast. I'm Amanda, a careers consultant here at Bournemouth University. In today's episode, I'm joined by Bobbie and Abbey from Rubicon People, a leading recruitment agency based right here in Dorset. We're diving into a hot topic that's shaping the future of job hunting and hiring: artificial intelligence in the recruitment process. In this episode, we talk about how Rubicon People are starting to embrace AI in their selection process, as well as how applicants are using AI to craft applications, and some of the issues to be aware of if you're using it. We explore both sides of the story. We also talk about what a good CV looks like. Just a quick note before we begin, AI in recruitment is evolving rapidly and different employers will use it in different ways, or maybe not at all. So while this episode offers valuable insights, always make sure you do your own research when applying for roles. Let's get into it. Hi, Abbey and Bobbie. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Hello.
Can you both just introduce yourselves, please?
Yes, so my name's Abbey. I am the head of marketing here at Rubicon.
And I'm Bobbie, and I'm the marketing assistant here at Rubicon.
Excellent, thank you. And you're both local, you studied locally. I can't remember which one of you went to BU and which one went to AUB. So do you want to just kind of tell me a bit about your what you both studied and where you studied at?
Yeah, sure. It was actually quite strange. We didn't realise until we were both working together that we both went to exactly the same university, and we had an overlap. We were both there at the same time. I went to AUB and studied fashion, and Bobbie, you were there, started a year after me, didn't you?
Yeah, and I did acting.
Excellent. Okay, so you both went to AUB.
I then did my master's in marketing at Bournemouth University. So yeah, AUB for my bachelor's, and then Bournemouth University for my master's. So a bit of controversy with the university rivalry.
Excellent. Okay, cool. And working for Rubicon People. So what is Rubicon People? What do you guys do there?
So we're a recruitment agency, and we work as a consultancy. So we recruit for both temporary and permanent positions, and we cover a variety of sectors as well. So we have a dedicated commercial division looking after office roles, things that you'd find more typically in a kind of office. But then we also have a technical engineering division and manufacturing and logistics as well. And then last year, we also had the relaunch of our executive division as well, so looking after like C-suite, high-level executive roles. So it's quite a diverse recruitment agency, actually, and with a dedicated team for each. And it's nice, I think, that we have both temporary and permanent across all of those divisions. But yeah, so supporting kind of candidates and clients predominantly down here in the south, but we do have clients all over the UK now.
Excellent. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about AI in the recruitment process. So obviously this is quite a hot topic at the moment. I'm seeing loads of discussions on LinkedIn and various other platforms about AI. So in terms of your recruiters, how are they noticing how AI is being used in the recruitment process currently?
So I think I'll start from an employer's perspective and sort of the recruitment process, and then Bobbie will talk more from a candidate's perspective and how they're using AI. But we're certainly finding that we're using it a little bit. Employers out there are starting to bring AI into the process more and more, but we're right at the beginning of that process. So it's only going to grow, and there'll be more and more tools available. I think one of the main things at the moment is shortlisting and the ranking of applications. So what we find in any given month, we'll have over 7,000 applications coming into the jobs that we have advertised. And similarly for our employers locally that do their own recruitment process, it's a similar sort of level. They'll have thousands of CVs to go through. And there are tools out there that will help with the shortlisting of those CVs. So it will have a look at the content that's on those CVs and measure how the CVs match job descriptions for the hiring process, and then it will rank the CV with the top being the ones that meet that criteria the best, and then it sort of goes through with the bottom being the ones that don't match that at all. It really, really speeds up that whole process. You think for someone to review a CV, it can take up to 3 to 4 minutes per CV. For us, it's a little bit quicker. We're doing it day in, day out. We kind of get it down to maybe a minute, 2 minutes, but you times that by 7,000 CVs, and that's serious manpower. So these tools are significantly streamlining that process and making it much, much quicker.
I've heard quite mixed things about this. So I'm hearing there are recruiters saying, actually, we don't use these tools. We're not using them. We get in a CV and we have knockout questions, which are very much yes, no questions. So that often what I'm hearing is some people are applying to jobs and they're getting automatic rejections, and they think it's because their CV is being rejected by, these scanners. But actually, quite often it's that first step. It's those knockout questions, which is like, do you need a visa now or in the future, or have you studied a particular course that we need you to study, or have you maybe got a specific technical skill? That's the knockout question, which it'll be an automatic reject because it's a yes or no. But then there are recruiters saying that they just aren't using the kind of scanning software. But are you noticing that there is a shift that gradually employers are using this, or recruiters are using it?
Yeah, I think at the moment that we're right on that tipping point of there are still recruiters out there saying we physically review every single CV, and up until very recently we have been one of those recruiters that has reviewed every single CV. The problem we have now is there are pressures on HR teams out there in local businesses to speed up that process and get there quicker. So I'm finding, or we're finding, that there is a shift more towards those kind of tools, and also the tools haven't had the technology they've needed to confidently say that it's rejecting or shortlisting those CVs, and we can confidently say that they're doing it in a really sort of transparent and in the right way. But we're actually now using a tool that we can confidently say is shortlisting CVs in the right way, given the right prompts and the right sort of parameters and boundaries to look through those CVs with. It's working really well, but that's only been in the last couple of months. So yes, there'll definitely be more of a shift, and more employers will be using these tools.
Interesting. And the tool you use, is that part of the applicant tracking system that you have? Is that, because we hear a lot about ATS and beat the ATS, and which we could talk about. Is that what you're using? Is it one of the ATS tools that you are using?
Yes. So our ATS has sort of like a tag on that you can add that has that sort of AI process within it.
Brilliant. Again, some applicant tracking systems or ATS, they're literally just a tracking platform, aren't they? Do you want to explain what an ATS is? That would be really interesting.
Yeah, so we use one called Logic Melon. It's quite popular within the recruitment space. Effectively, what it does is it acts as like a middleman. So we use Logic Melon to post all of our job adverts through, and it connects to all the job boards that we post those adverts to. It then will pull back all those applications that we're receiving to those adverts into one condensed place, and then it means we can review those applications in one easy accessible place for us and just go through them one by one. And then it has a sort of ranking option within the ATS to say, yes, this is a really good candidate that meets the criteria perfectly, we want to contact them for this role. there is a ranking for they're not quite right for this role, but it might be that they're suitable for something else in the future, and then perhaps something maybe they're outside of the UK, of which for us that's really hard to support, or yeah, that they're just not suitable, it's not someone that we'll be able to work with. So that's sort of your basic ATS setup. We then have the AI side, which is what we're working with now. So when we post an advert, we have the option to add lots of keywords in the sort of background. So say if we're recruiting for a marketing manager, I'll use that one as an example, you can add lots of keywords in there. So if they need to have Adobe experience, SEO, blog writing, social media, you can add those as keywords so that when people are applying and those keywords are mentioned within their CV, it can make that link, and then it can rank the applications based on those keyword matches within the CV. So that when our consultants then come to have a look at those applications, the ones at the top will be the ones that are matching all of that criteria, and effectively the ones that are most likely going to be suitable for the role, and then they can work their way through them. It doesn't remove any applications. Anyone who applies to the jobs that we put out, they will still be there, so we can go through the entire list. It's just kind of putting them in a sort of suitability order for us, so it speeds that process up.
Brilliant. And I get it's really no difference in a way from a human looking at the CV, because if there are specific requirements for a job, just such as SEO, social media, whatever that is, you're going to be putting that in the job description, and you're going to be looking out for that when you read through the CVs, aren't you? Those very specific skills or tools.
Definitely. I think when we're having a look at CVs and we're looking for that specific one skill, a lot of the time you'll open a CV and do a control find and put that word in anyway. So it's just speeding that process up. And yeah, as I said, all those applications are still there. It's just put almost in priority order in terms of the matching.
Okay. And with that, the other thing that I see a lot of is people talking about ATS compliant CVs. So CV structures, formats that ATS systems cope well with. So do you find with the platform that you use, does it get confused with things like images or certain type of layout, or does it not matter? Like, how do you find, or maybe I should ask, what's the best format for a CV for these types of systems?
I'd say the one we're using, I've not come across any problems in terms of the formatting of the CV. I think there are definitely some sort of like best practice or like tips that we'd suggest in terms of the format and layout of a CV, but we've not had any issues with the software we're using. It can read any form of CV, whether it's in Word, PDF. Actually, on that note, the only area I can imagine there being an issue, and where we've only just started using this tool, we haven't come across it yet, but if you are sending your CV in a JPEG format, I would say it would probably have a problem there, because it can't read the text within that CV. It's put in as an image, so I'd always make sure it's in a text-based format. I'll let Bobbie talk more about sort of the CV layout and what it should look like, but I would avoid any sort of JPEG formats of the entire CV. Any text needs to be readable by technology as text.
Do you use any other tools, AI tools, in your recruitment process, or is that pretty much it for you as a recruitment company?
At the moment, that is all we're using. That's not to say there aren't other tools out there. One being there are tools that can measure interview signals and body language and techniques. So sort of a Teams interview where you're talking face to face but virtually, there are tools out there that will measure how you're answering questions, how you're coming across in terms of your tone of voice, your body language. And at the moment, there is no legislation in place in the UK to say what can and can't be used in that process. Within the EU, it's called the EU AI Act, and they have some very strict rules in terms of what can be used and what can't be used within the recruitment process. And actually, they've put recruitment as like a high risk classification, and actually the use of tools to measure body language has been banned within the EU. At the moment, there isn't that sort of legislation in place within the UK. We will catch up, but it's not in place. So at the moment, all of those tools are free rein, something to be aware of. I don't think there are loads and loads of employers out there using them, but sort of people are dipping their toe in the water with these tools and seeing what's out there. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw them used more and more over the rest of this year into next. And then you've got the normal sort of content generation, so ChatGPT, Copilot, those sorts of tools are being used. I mean, we use them on a daily basis within marketing, within HR. They definitely do for writing job descriptions, job adverts, and sort of building that content.
I know some employers, particularly on graduate schemes, they might do video interviews where, those interviews are being recorded and there's no actual person that they're speaking to. Again, I think quite a lot from what I hear is people that are actually assessing those interviews. It's not those bots at this time, because I think, like you said, it's a risky ground, isn't it? Because people with additional needs, if it's kind of computers that are assessing that, then it's not going to necessarily assess people in the right way, potentially.
Yeah, I think a lot of these tools definitely at the beginning of that stage, and they've not had those real life experiences of being put into practice. And a lot of the AI technology will learn from situations that it's exposed to. So ChatGPT, for example, it is learning everything that it pulls together based on what's been inputted before and what's out there. So Bobbie will talk about some sort of learned biases. Actually, it might be a good time for you to talk about that, Bobbie.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got an example of Amazon is a very famous example of how they were using AI within their recruitment process. And what was happening was that the AI model they were using was basically kind of disregarding female applications because of the learned bias historically, where there has been more discrimination against women and a variety of minorities or different groups of people and communities, where AI is scraping the internet and history and learning from our past. It's unintentionally disregarding female applications, and this was identified as part of their recruitment process. So obviously that had to be managed and changed and adapted and everything. But it just goes to show that what it's learning is our history, and if we want our history to be our future, then that needs to be taken into consideration. So it's really important that, particularly now, while AI is still catching up, and it will be great. Even image generation, for example, you look at the kind of images that were being generated a few months ago by things like ChatGPT, where people would have 8 fingers on one hand, or various different very not great quality, versus now already we've seen a huge improvement in the AI tools that are available and their capabilities. So with regards to using those in the recruitment process, with the lack of legislation and everything at the minute and guidance, it's very important that there is some kind of observation from a human perspective, and kind of checking that those processes are working correctly, and not learning from things like gender bias in history and things like that. Yeah.
So We've talked a bit about how employers are using AI. What about candidates? What are you noticing? Because you said you're getting a huge number of applications through now. Do you feel that candidates are using AI more? And is that creating more applications? Is that almost causing a problem for employers and recruiters because the vast number of applications you're getting through has increased?
I'd definitely say that there has been a huge increase in what we see for candidates using AI in their applications. We can basically spot it a mile off. We've got very good because of the vast number of CVs that we look at every day. We are very good at spotting it, and it is very obvious. The way our process kind of works, we haven't necessarily seen an increase in applications, but an increase in people using AI in their CVs, for example, has increased dramatically. It is something we can spot a mile off, particularly kind of coming back to that structure. Like ChatGPT, for example, uses American spelling. So I see a Z in prioritize or emphasize. I know it's ChatGPT more than likely, which is something to be aware of for probably international students, because there is a high likelihood that they've learned English using American English, and that is a really strong association that we have with AI. So if they are using the Zs where S's should be, for example, or no U in the word colour or something like that, then that is something we would question as to whether AI has been used and not checked. Where people are just throwing into ChatGPT, this is what I do, this is this, make me sound amazing, give me a great CV, and it becomes very generic. We see a lot of really kind of generic CVs, and that's something to really be aware of, is that you don't want to strip your personality, and you don't want AI to kind of make you less of a person because of the support that it's providing. So definitely a larger number of applications that use AI, but not necessarily a large number of applications in general.
Okay, and I know that's different for each company, because I've heard from some companies, employers saying that they are receiving such a large number, and they call it the sea of sameness. A lot of the CVs are looking exactly the same because they've all used ChatGPT. You've mentioned American spellings being one giveaway. What other giveaways have you noticed that someone may have used ChatGPT or AI in their CV?
Another example would be M dashes, for example, which is that kind of longer dash and it meets the letters on both sides.
People are talking a lot about this on LinkedIn, these long dashes, which I didn't even know this was a thing.
It's all I see on my LinkedIn. It's M dash this, M dash that. You're using an M dash. But it's not something that we really use in grammar. It's not something that we've really seen. So that's a big giveaway or a big suggestion to us that people are using AI. Also, very typical words. Generally, if I see the word dynamic or fostered or esteemed within someone's CV or a LinkedIn post,
Owned, leveraged as well.
Leveraged, that's a biggie. Yeah, there's certain like language, the language and style that ChatGPT uses, it's really, really common, and we see it, like we just said, all the time on LinkedIn and CVs, everywhere. And also a very common one is it's the structure that ChatGPT uses. It'll be a sentence where it will talk about something and say, it's not only this, it's this, this, and this. And it's always that this isn't just a movement, it's a revelation, and it will go on and always use that. It's not just a this, it's a that. That's a very common one as well. I think because we just see it so often, it reads really samey, and it's just so easy to spot. And I think it's so exciting if you've got a CV and you put it into ChatGPT and you get this, wow, really well written, that makes me sound amazing, it's lots of good words. Like, it's quite exciting for you as a candidate, but to receive that, it really does strip away who you are. If it's not what you would have written, then it's not going to read as you, and that's who we want to know. We want to know who you are.
Yeah, just adding on to that, sometimes that you can tick all the boxes, have the correct spellings, have the correct structure, everything that you wouldn't necessarily know as ChatGPT. But sometimes, because we do see, like Bobbie said, it's our job to review CVs day in, day out. You sometimes just read a personal statement at the top and you finish reading it and think, I don't actually know much about this person. Like, there's just a lot of words in there. There's not actually much about the person coming through. And I think that's what we're potentially losing, is that sort of real standout point of what a personal statement gives. We're losing that because it's generalizing. So it's hard to explain, because you're ticking all the boxes in the other areas, but it's just a feeling that we get when we're reading those paragraphs. It doesn't kind of come across as really genuine and from the person.
And I've noticed that too, looking at reviewing student CVs, that it's a lot of filler words. It doesn't add a huge amount of value because of it doesn't really tell an employers much about what skills they have and what experience they have, and giving that evidence. It all sounds a bit generic and a bit, I kind of say, empty sometimes. Like the bullets can sound, you think they sound, for someone who's untrained might go, oh, that sounds really good, but actually they're kind of empty bullet points sometimes, unless there's kind of quantifying achievements or specific things in that. They just don't always sound, they don't always add a huge amount of value for a particular candidate. So what would you recommend? I mean, would you recommend that just people just don't use AI at all, or like how would you use AI effectively as a candidate? What would you recommend they do if they want to use it as a tool, but without sounding like everybody else?
So it's a tricky one, isn't it? I mean, from a personal perspective, like we're in marketing, we use ChatGPT a lot for streamlining processes, for content generation, idea generation, and what I will more times than not do is do a big brain dump, and I will say, I want to talk about this. This is what I have in mind. I want to refer to this, and this. And the more I write into it, I'm like, can you just condense this into some bullet points for me? And then I'll use those bullet points to then write my paragraph. Sometimes when you're trying to get something down on a page, it's that sort of planning process, isn't it? You wouldn't be able to go and write your dissertation on the first go. You have to kind of break it down, put it into blocks, make a big plan, and go through chunk by chunk. And so I wouldn't recommend, I wouldn't say don't use ChatGPT. I think it's good for idea generation, but I think it needs to come really from you, and what you would put in, almost as if you've written your CV. You could ask for advice for ChatGPT. How does this read? I want to apply for this job. Do you think my CV reflects the skills and experience needed to apply for this job? Also for interview preparation, that's a really good idea to use ChatGPT. You could say, help me prepare for an interview. This is the job I'm applying for. Can you give me some of the questions I might be asked? And then you can practice writing your answers. It's really good for that sort of feedback, but I think it's just really about not getting lost. Yeah, and if you're asking ChatGPT a question, how many other people are asking that same question and getting the same answer? That's the biggest thing. So you need to kind of tweak.
ChatGPT is an incredible tool that is revolutionizing the way we do anything, but it's only as good as the information that you are prompting it with. The more granular you can be with what you're wanting it to give you, the better it will be at producing something that's a bit more tailored to what you need it to be. If you're just asking, what's the best way to write a CV, write me a paragraph, it will just do the most generic, because it's going out there, finding an answer to that question. across the whole of the internet. Whereas if you're saying, I need to write a paragraph about how to tailor a CV to a specific marketing job with these specific skills, and pulling more into it, then it will refine it and make it much more tailored to what you need it to do. What is quite I say dangerous is probably a bit dramatic, but what is quite dangerous is if you just give it free rein with no parameters, and it really will then just give you a subpar answer, really. So being as detailed as possible really helps.
I did that once. I actually put into ChatGPT, create me a generic CV. I gave no content create a generic CV for a graduate. I said, use the words that you typically use for a ChatGPT CV, and it created this whole 2-page CV, which sounds using great language and stuff, and it completely made everything up, all the experience up, but just to demonstrate how generic it becomes, because that's with no content, and what it just throws out to you, even without any content and any prompts. So again, you just think about other people putting it into ChatGPT, it will all end up sounding very similar.
Yeah, I mean, everyone uses it slightly differently. My rule of thumb is I never copy paste. Anything it creates, I will physically write it. I say physically, but type it out, because it forces me to read what it's actually produced, and it forces me to notice when there's actually something that doesn't sound right, is not factually correct, because that does happen. It can spout out, it's learning what's out there on the internet. So if there's lots of information that's not correct out there, so it is capable of giving you incorrect information. So it really forces you to make sure you're reviewing what it's creating for you. That's personally how I use it. It works for me.
Yeah, well, I think that's a really good tip, because also I know what some people do is they'll put the job description into AI or ChatGPT and then ask it to tailor put their CV in, and then ask it to tailor the CV to the job description. But what has happened is sometimes it will put in skills that actually the particular candidate doesn't have any evidence of, have any experience of. It will just add that to the CV, and then they're going to be caught out later on in the recruitment process claiming to have this experience and skills, maybe when they don't. So I think, like you said, it's that false information, isn't it?
Yes, and that has happened here. We've had situations where we've submitted a CV to a client, and that candidate has gone to interview, and actually their skills and experience and what they're able to articulate when they're face to face with that employer doesn't match what they've put on their CV, and that's a very real problem. Like whatever you're putting on your CV, you can guarantee an employer is going to question you about that, and ask you questions surrounding those skills and experience when you're doing a face-to-face or even a Teams interview. And if you're not able to talk about that and sort of give examples, then you're probably going to fall down at that sort of stage. So it's really important whatever you're putting on your CV matches your actual skills and experience, and you're confident talking about that.
Brilliant. And what would you say a good CV looks like? So whether they use AI or not, in terms of a good CV that you've seen and kind of gone, yeah, this is great, what would you say ticks those boxes?
So I think immediately, like Abbey said before, that personal statement section, that profile section at the top is your immediate grabber. And I think what we want to see from a CV is we want to understand you as a person. That's the most important thing. So that profile really helps us understand you. Go, great, that sounds like you're a really confident person. If say it's a customer service role or something like that, brilliant, they sound really confident, they're happy talking to people. I really kind of get that impression from that profile. Now let's look at the experience. If you're a student, then obviously you may not have any work experience yet at all. So I think for us, what we really want to see is like applicable qualifications, if you've done a placement, any additional qualifications, not necessarily your degree, but if you've done, and like for marketing, for example, you might have done like some HubSpot training or other different qualifications. We want to see things that are relevant to the role. Sometimes we get CVs through where you might be applying for, I don't know, you might be applying for an administrator role, but all you've done is factory work, and they might have lots of experience in doing a completely different role, and it seems a little bit rogue, but the way the CV is structured. So a CV that aligns with the role, whether that's experience, skills and interests as well. If you were applying for, I don't know, a job like with a wildlife charity or something like that, then if your skills and hobbies align with that, you go, yeah, I can really understand that this person would be passionate about that industry. So your relevant any experience, your qualifications, the profile right at the top is a really biggie. And yeah, I think just something that aligns specifically. If there's anything else you wanted to add, Abby?
Not too long. We sometimes get some CVs that are sent through and they are in excess 3, 4, 5. I think we've had some that are 6 pages long. I think what's the stat? You have this first 4 or 5 seconds of someone looking at your CV before they make a quick judgment of whether to move on or have a look further. So I have to admit, a really long CV is definitely something that can be quite off-putting, because you need to be quite specific with the information you are selecting to go on your CV, be really concise, to the point, kind of avoid waffling on too long in long paragraphs, because people like employers haven't got time. As I've already said, they've got 7,000 applications to look through if they're not using AI, so they need something real short, sharp, that gets to the point and gets them to a stage where they can say, actually, this is a good CV that I'd like to progress as quick as possible.
Brilliant. And I guess, I mean, you've talked about making it relevant, but I guess earlier you were also talking about how some companies like yourselves are beginning to use the ranking tools when you're scanning the CVs. So I guess it's really reading the job description and person specifications carefully and tailoring the CV to those and making sure that the experiences that you're asking for, the skills, it's in there, I guess, with evidence as well. Because what I've seen sometimes is people will put like a list of skills that they have, but there's nothing to back that up. So did you want to just talk about that? Have you noticed that as well? What do you think of these skills sections without evidence?
Yeah, I think that's quite common when we're looking at student CVs. And I can remember when I was at university, the structure I had, there was a section that had skills, and it was just a list of skills. So yes, unless those skills can be relatable to the jobs that you've done or the experience that you've gained, sometimes it can be viewed as just like this sort of pointless list. Leave nothing to chance. If you've got a list of skills and then your experience, you're potentially asking whoever's looking at your CV to do the matching up of those skills without your guidance. You need to incorporate that within the experience write up with each of those roles, and then you don't need to sort of list them separately. So yeah, it is definitely important that you link it to where that experience has come from.
Brilliant, thank you. And just going back to the length of the CV, what would you say? Maximum 2 pages? That's what we tend to say.
Yes.
Do you concur? Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
Definitely. Yeah, nothing past two sides of A4.
Excellent. Okay, so I mean, I think we've covered so much in this episode, but in terms of the developments, how AI might be changing the recruitment process in the future, what do you think job seekers need to be aware of over the next 3 to 5 years? Do we know? Do we can we foresee that far? Because it's changing all the time, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so fast paced and so fast moving. I think what will come is that the UK will set some sort of boundaries as to what can be used and what can't. At the moment, that's not in place, so it is a little bit of free rein. I think employers have a little bit of catching up to do in terms of sort of transparency and the GDPR side, and making sure a candidate is aware when and where we're using those AI tools. So at the moment, there are sort of a few rules in place, I suppose. One being that we need to make candidates aware of when we're using those tools, whether that's through our policies on the website. It needs to be somewhere accessible for the candidate to read. And I think because employers at the moment are only just dipping their toe into this world, they haven't caught up on that side of things. So there are a lot of tools out there being used that at the moment people probably aren't aware that they're part of the process. So I think that will come into play a lot more, and it'll be a sort of a tighter rein on making sure that people are aware of what's being used.
For what I hear is, candidates needn't be fearful of how recruiters are using AI to scan their CVs, if they are, which, like we said, a lot of employers are saying that they don't use this sort of technology, but maybe some are beginning to. But it is all about tailoring your CV or tailoring your application, ensuring you've got the evidence of those experiences and skills, and sounding authentic. That sounds like no matter what, and whether that's for a human or for an AI platform, that's kind of what you're looking for.
Definitely. Yeah, if there's one thing to take away, it's that tailoring of whatever you're applying to. Make sure you've read through it and you've tailored to that. That would be the biggest takeaway, I would say.
Thank you both so much for coming and talking to me today. It's been really interesting. I appreciate your time.
No, it's been really good. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for listening today. Please remember to subscribe and follow so you can keep up to date with all new episodes.